Thanks so much for watching. Just a special note to say that we will be moving our release date from Thursdays to Fridays. So stay tuned every Friday to listen to Dine Drink CLE, the podcast.
This week on Dine Drink CLE, the podcast.
And yeah, I was taken aback. I'm like, this is something I would have expected to find in like a New York or Chicago. Like this is like very.
You're probably like, wow, I should have wore a better outfit.
Yeah,
a picture of me up here.
And you know what? When I was there was actually a wedding going on in a section of it.
Hey, you need to leave.
No, I like when they fall off the boat.
Yeah,
Yes, but they were saying in competitions, you had to keep them so they have it's very tender, but you could see your bite.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel
almost falling off the bone, but not quite.
So Pop Swenson and Guy Witt started the business and sold it. One of the sales was to a guy named Bob Phillips, who owned a restaurant called Swensons. And Swensons had the original Galley Boy. And at one point, I found an old...
I'm Josh Duke.
And I'm Alex Darus.
And you're either watching or listening to Dine Drink CLE, the podcast, where each and every week we're going to be joined by cleveland.com's best and brightest food experts, insiders, and influencers talking all things food and drink here in the Northeast Ohio area. What are we talking about today, Alex?
Yeah, lots to talk about. This weekend is Memorial Day weekend, kicking off the summer season. So we're going to talk about patios, rooftops, all the places to eat and drink outside. We also are going to talk about the rib burn-offs, which there's a bunch of rib burn-offs this time of year in Northeast Ohio. Paris Wolfe, a reporter at cleveland.com, she was a judge at one of them recently, so we'll get some firsthand scoop. And then finally, we're also going to talk about the 90th anniversary of Swensons. Everyone loves Swensons, so.
Yeah, and obviously that's exactly what we got right in front of us right now. Some good old Swensons, and we got Marc Bona to sort of talk about this big milestone they've just reached.
It really is. 90 years is a lot for anything. 1934 they started, and it's just the coolest thing because they have this very old business model that has really been pretty much untouched since the beginning. If you haven't been to Swensons, you don't go inside, you stay in your car, you can get it to go, or use the old-fashioned food on the tray service, which I think it's just got a really nice nostalgic retro vibe to it. I also think it's genuine. I think it's lasted because it's not schlocky, it's not fake, it's real. So the key point of the service is they use curb servers. They've actually trademarked this term. It's guys and women who college age who run. They run the few steps from the eatery to your car. They run back, they bring your food, they run back, take your money, run back. And it's pretty neat. I talked to a bunch of people for this story, one of whom was a server back in the late 80s. And ironically, he's now a marathon runner.
Wow.
So Vinny Verkaman, he's been in Florida for more than 30 years, originally from Cuyahoga Falls. Vinny was back recently visiting, and he asked one of the servers, hey, with smartphones, what are you guys running these days? And the guy said he tracked it. They run 7 miles per shift.
Wow.
So that's
not like it's a big
right. It's
distance.
just a tiny little short burst.
Good workout.
It's a very good workout. So I got a kick out of that. It's been a fun place. The menu, fast food, but way more extensive than any of the national chains, more than McDonald's, Burger King, Arby's, Wendy's, all of that. Those you get 10 to 12 different items and variations on fried chicken sandwiches, and that's about it. But at Swensons, you get a whole lot of things. They even have a shrimp dinner, egg salad, barbecued pork, so many different things. They have, and really, the other neat thing about Swensons is they really stayed tried and true for a long time, and they really didn't expand that much. In recent years, they've started a slow growth pattern. What Jeff Flowers, the CEO, told me is they're taking a concentric circle growth. So they're moving outward just a little bit. Most of the locations are in Greater Cleveland. They have a couple in Cincinnati and Columbus. One is in Indianapolis, and he didn't shut the door on potential growth to maybe the Pittsburgh and Detroit markets. I think they're only on, and by the way, I should say they did get a nice little boost from LeBron.
Yes,
James
for sure.
repeatedly on social has said this is one of his favorite places. The LeBron James Museum actually has Swensons, just like us, our props here, without the food, in one of his lockers in the museum in Akron. I think they're only on their I want to say their fourth ownership group. So they're really going strong.
Yeah. And so what about the Galley Boy? Because I think one of the most interesting things from your story is that it's not really originally from Swensons, technically. So tell us about that.
So Pop Swenson and Guy Witt started the business and sold it. One of the sales was to a guy named Bob Phillips, who owned a restaurant called Swensons. And Swensons had the original Galley Boy. And at one point, I found an old ad in our archives. They actually were offering the Galley Boy at both restaurants.
Oh, cool.
Swensons went by the wayside, and Swensons, of course, still going strong. And the Galley Boy is their top seller. So here's a shot of it. And the unique aspect, couple things, they have a secret sauce, double burger patty, and they always give it to you with the speared green olive. I just think that's unique. I think it's fun. I think that's pretty cool. And then the other side we have here, this to me was pretty interesting because you think of a fast food restaurant. I said, hey, Jeff, what are your top sellers? And he said, well, Galley Boy's number one. But surprisingly, teasers, potato teasers surpassed fries as a number one side.
Wow.
These are jalapeno cheese poppers, basically.
Yum.
And he said they really had to dial in the recipe because you want it to be a little spicy, but because you're reaching out to the masses, it can't be too spicy. So for me, I would like a little bit more heat. That's just me personally. But the teasers are their number one seller.
Wow. Yeah. No, I love those. That is the best side, though.
Yeah,
like it is.
And just speaking of origins of things, Swensons related, you talked a little bit about the curbside runners. Is that what we were calling them? I thought it was really interesting in your story how like the tale is it was kind of born out of what was it, a short shift or something? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was fun. Apparently, an early manager many years ago went to Pop Swensons, and for whatever reason, I never found out why, but he said, "Hey, I don't want to use an extra server on the shift." Maybe he thought he could earn a little bit more money that way. And Pop Swenson told him, well, that's fine. You can do it, but don't make any of these customers wait. So you're going to have to run. And legend goes from that moment on, they haven't stopped running. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's such a trademark part of Swensons. And like you said, I think it's part of what gives it this like vintage sort of appeal to people.
Well, yeah, it's the nostalgia factor for sure. I mean, LeBron obviously helped a lot with the marketing, but I think it's the nostalgia and the fact that they haven't really changed their recipes. They haven't really changed their menu. It's people always are going to resonate with that.
And something else I thought was interesting, because I looked it up, I'm like, 90 years, that sounds like a crazy long amount of time. And so I'm just like, okay, well, what am I going to compare this to? Obviously, I'm not saying we should compare Swensons to like a McDonald's or Wendy's, but I looked at how long these people have been in the game too. And McDonald's, they started in 1955, so they're at 69 years. Wendy's is at 54 years, and Burger King's at 70 years. So it's like they are blowing them out of the park in terms of how long they've been in operating.
That is a great point.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before, and I've written a lot about this. This is Northeast Ohio, especially, is a very, very nostalgic city, a nostalgic area for a lot of reasons. And it doesn't surprise me that Swensons is doing well here. Had they kept this same approach in a totally different city, I think they'd still be around. I don't know, but it was the right thing to do at the right time. That was a great statistical timeline, Josh. And also, people do, especially nowadays, we want to drink local, consume local, and stay local. And this is a locally based company that hasn't left this area. I think 20 of the 21 locations are in Northeast Ohio, or in Ohio, I should say. And I think that's important to people.
Yeah, for sure. And I think another part of your story is so true, just from going away to college and people coming back home. It's like everyone stops at Swensons once you pass the first one on the highway on the way home. Like it's just everyone loves it.
I guess if I had to like compare it to another regional place that's not in Ohio but somewhere else, would In-N-Out Burger be like a good
probably like that? Well, they probably have been around longer than all those places you said too. Probably I don't know how long.
I don't know. I didn't look that one up either, but
probably like for sure.
And I always associate, for whatever reason, that with California.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think that's where they're from.
Yep.
Yeah,
and Vegas. You can get them in Vegas, I know too. So we got some off-camera knowledge that In-N-Out was from 1948. So Swensons is still older than all of these kind of big restaurants. And what I was going to say too is kind of like what you said with people wanting to consume locally and stuff. It's like that doesn't always mean you want to go to a fancy sit down restaurant. Like everyone wants to eat fast food sometimes, and it kind of feels better if you're eating it than from a local place with kind of more real options.
Yeah, I agree. And if anybody saw Super Size Me,
Oh, jeez.
I have a hard time going to McDonald's. You can call me a snob or not. It's not going to happen.
What's
I'm
embarrassing
right there
is
with you.
that should have stopped me from wanting to go to Yeah, and now we're going to talk a little bit about rib burn-off season. We have Paris Wolfe here, who was recently a judge at the downtown Willoughby rib burn-off. So hi, Paris.
Hi, Alex. Hi, Josh.
Welcome.
Yeah, so it's rib burn-off season, Memorial Day weekend. I know we have the big Berea National Rib Burn-Off and Beer Fest, and also the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton is doing one this year. So tell us, what is, for someone who has no idea, what is a rib burn-off?
Well, it's when a number of rib joints come together and make their ribs, and they're judged. People can taste whatever they want, but the judges come up with a final winners.
And there's usually like prizes of some sort.
Yeah.
Or bragging rights.
Sometimes there's money. Sometimes there's bragging rights. Sometimes there's trophies.
Yeah. So
Okay.
last weekend, how many ribs did you try in your judging?
13.
Wow.
I did not eat them all. I ate a couple bites of each.
Okay.
It was still a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you 13. I would imagine that would just all blend together for me. I don't know if I would be able to differentiate them out. How is that process? Like how are you making sure that you are judging each and everyone individually, remembering them, all that?
Yeah, what's your
talk us through it.
methodology?
Yeah.
Okay. For the first part, we have a ballot that basically has the 5 categories: tenderness, appearance, presentation, taste. Every time we get one rib from a vendor, we rate them, and then we get the next one, and we don't rate them really so much against each other as individually among 5 numbers where they fall. They're all so different. It was pretty easy to differentiate among them.
So it was a lot of different styles.
And they were all Kansas City.
Oh,
All
so
tomato based, but some were saltier, some were sweeter, some had smoke, some had way too much smoke, some had char, some had more char, some had I think a couple of them might have been more spare rib style than
Well,
baby
yeah.
back.
Well, yeah, because I just went to barbecue boot camp this weekend, which you'll read about later on cleveland.com, but I learned that, the spare ribs are the ones in the front, and then the back ribs are the ones in the back of the pig, and then a baby back rib. It comes from a baby pig. It's like veal.
Oh, no.
No, it's actually, because I was asking that because he was talking about the 2 kinds of ribs, and I'm like, so which one is the baby back? He's like, it's the back ribs, but they're baby little pigs. So
Oh.
The things you learn on Dine Drink CLE, the podcast.
it's part of eating. You got to know where your food comes from. But
True.
yeah, and what do you think? Like, why do you think that these rib burn-offs are so popular with not even just like you as a judge, but just kind of local foodies who go and
I
do
think because you have an opportunity to taste different ribs, you can buy just one bone for like $3, and you can go from different places and do your own judging. I didn't have time to go take the Kansas City Barbecue Society course on judging. So I talked to someone who had.
That's so official.
It is. I talked to someone who had and someone who competes, and he's also Aaron Huntelman. He's also the competition meat manager at Mr. Brisket, because they supply a lot of competitions across the country.
Oh.
So I talked to him, and he said presentation. People sometimes just dump a bunch of ribs in a styrofoam box and bring them in for you to taste. They should really be presented a little more attractively. Soul, which is in downtown Willoughby, the restaurant, used a round, like a wood round, like a charcuterie board, and they put a layer of arugula, and then they piled their ribs kind of neatly on it. And it was a much more attractive presentation. You like to eat things that look good.
Yeah. For sure.
And then another thing Aaron told me was when you bite into the rib, it shouldn't just fall off the bone and be mushy.
I learned that
Really?
this weekend too, because I prefer them like
A bite. You need to leave.
I like when they fall off the
you
bone.
do?
Yes,
I
but they
feel-
were saying in competitions, you had to keep them so they have it's very tender, but you could see your bite.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel
almost
Yeah.
falling off the bone, but not quite.
Yeah, I feel like most people would say, like, I feel like it's a phrase. It's fall off the bone good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like that's even like a phrase to
Not for
describe
the
something that's
barbecue
good.
professionals.
Interesting.
It's a marketing phrase, absolutely,
Interesting.
but that's not your goal when you're doing it for competition.
Hmm.
Then I think you get a little more subjective when you're talking about the sauce.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because if it's complex, if it's balanced, you kind of know what you don't like.
Yeah.
And
Kansas City, that's the like thick, sweet kind of tomato based one. Yes. Because there's all. So I thought that they were all going to be like different styles of barbecue
I
sauce, but that's
expected
very
some
interesting.
variety within that, but everybody was serving the Kansas City style.
Talking about these vendors that were competing, would you expect to see like the same companies, same stores, or same restaurants if I go to the ones coming up?
I would think you
Okay.
might, because if they already were up here from Fort Worth, Texas,
Mhm.
I would imagine they might just stay here and go to the Berea.
Yeah, I think for the
Interesting.
national ones, but I think locally too, there's some variety.
Yeah,
of them,
and
for sure.
Interestingly, Boss Hog won for best, but we had 2 local win second and third place: Soul Restaurant in Willoughby and also Wild Goose in Willoughby.
Okay.
Wow.
And we did not
try.
do that on purpose.
Yeah.
It just came out that way.
What are you allowed to tell us? Like what your preference was? Your order of
Oh yeah, what was your favorite? Well,
a
My
favorite?
favorite,
I guess you blind test them. Like you don't know who, or you know.
we did know,
Yeah.
but
Oh.
it didn't matter because it didn't mean anything to
Yeah.
me who they were.
Yeah.
I would say Boss Hog, we pretty much all agreed. And I was finding that I was getting maybe a little more critical as time went on because I was able to do a little comparison. But Boss Hog was just outstanding.
Mm.
It was the best.
How do you stop yourself? Because obviously you got to do 13. You got to leave room for all of them. How do you stop yourself from just going in on them if it's
Oh
really,
yeah,
really
how do
good?
you not want to eat a
How do you not-
side?
It's
Like I want to
really
eat
Oh, yeah, that's
coleslaw.
Yeah, I know. It is hard. What happened is I judged 2 macaroni and cheese competitions and I learned my lesson. That's how I learned.
Oh, that sounds brutal.
She's a
Experience.
seasoned judge for sure. I guess well, they were all Kansas City style, but do you have a particular favorite style of barbecue?
I like when they use a little more vinegar in the sauce.
That's me, like the
Mm.
Carolina.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would imagine a lot of these sauces could be good on wings.
Yes.
Or
Oh,
could
for
you
sure.
substitute them out?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For
And
sure.
one of the ribs actually had more of the vinegary, creamy wing sauce, and I thought it was different. But that might be your favorite, Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about so they had these were they all smoked or were they different cooking methods? Because I know some people
were
do different
smoked
things.
more. Some
Mm.
were not smoked at all. Some were a little over smoked. The Boss Hog, probably one of the reasons they won is because their smoke was, you could taste it. It was detectable. You could taste the meat. And then when you put the sauce with it, you could still get all 3.
Yeah.
It was balanced.
Well, yeah, because that's what I don't like when you eat like a rib and it's like this much barbecue sauce on it, like a whole,
Right.
like it's like doubling the size of the rib. Like you need a good like,
It was a nice balance. No, it was a
Yes.
perfect balance.
Mm.
Yeah.
yeah. No, I'm an expert now after barbecue boot camp this weekend.
Oh,
Me
yeah.
too.
Yeah. Well, yes. Now I can judge. You got to get me on the judging
Yeah.
panel for sure. But yeah, no. Do you make ribs at home? Do you ever?
I do. I use the Alton Brown recipe.
So what's that method? Because I know everyone does it like kind of differently.
It is a slow braise in the oven with a rub on it, and then finishing it off on the grill with a little bit more of a glaze than a sauce.
Yum.
Where's your favorite spot to go get ribs around Cleveland?
Well, it's kind of. I think my answer's changed recently
Oh, okay.
because what's it called? Sweet Pork Wilson's on 117th, which I wrote about them. It's so good. It's such a good deal. They have little snack packs where you can get like 2 ribs, fries, and like a piece of cornbread for like $10 or less or something. Like it's like great deal, great happy hour. But the owner, he is back there in the parking lot. He might even have 3 smokers now. I know he at least has 2, just smoking all day. And he'll do like a smoked ribeye that's delicious. Their chicken wings are so good. Everything there is good. And it's great prices. But I love Landmark Smokehouse is good.
I was looking up where you might find the best, and that was one that kept.
I love Landmark's
on the list.
brunch because they have like a breakfast like bacon, egg, and cheese, but it's like brisket, egg, and cheese,
Mhm.
or corned beef hash kind of like different things that are really good. Landmark has really good brisket nachos.
Mm.
So I think I like Landmark for like dishes that happen to have barbecue meat in them that
Mhm.
just taste good. Whereas like Sweet Pork Wilson's is you're getting a barbecue tray with
Okay.
the sides. Yeah, so rib burn off season this weekend and kind of kicking off the whole barbecue season all summer. Even if there's not rib burn offs, I feel like there's plenty of different festivals and stuff where you're outside eating barbecue, which is kind of part of the season.
Okay, Alex. Well, speaking of Memorial Day weekend, summer fun, a lot of people are going to be wanting to eat outdoors at patios. And I know you've been working on a story or a few stories actually, to sort of
in the works.
explore that. So yeah, tell me about some of the patios that the Greater Cleveland has to offer and rooftop bars, stuff like that.
I feel like especially now, like 2024 summer, there's like more rooftops than ever.
Mhm.
Cleveland's kind of been like interesting with, we have this great lake, but sometimes the waterfront dining can be hard to come by. Like it's like we don't use it all the time.
Mhm.
But I think that now there's a lot of different spaces like rooftops that aren't just downtown, or waterfront dining that isn't the lake. It's the Chagrin Falls or something like that. And
Mhm.
it's like, those are still great ways to eat outside. And I guess, I don't know, I have a few favorites. I
Mhm.
guess if we're going rooftops, I really love Garden of Eden, which is on the top of the
Yes.
9. It is very colorful, bright, trendy, but I really love it because they have margarita trees.
Yeah.
So you can get a tree
Mhm.
with like 4 flavors of Patron margaritas.
Patron, and they serve them in the bottles.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they are delicious. And
Yeah.
it's like the best way if you're like going out with your friends, start your night there and get a tree.
100% agree. I was there actually recently, and yeah, I was taken aback. I'm like, oh, this is something I would have expected to find in like a New York or Chicago. Like this is like very,
You're
very.
probably like, wow, I should have wore a better outfit to
Yeah,
get a good picture of
yeah.
me up here.
And you know what? When I was there was actually a wedding going on, and a section of it. I don't
Oh,
know if it was a
cool.
wedding or what, but they were taking photos, and they appeared to be set up for a wedding. But anyway, it was very, very, very pretty up there, very trendy, like you said.
Yeah.
I would go for a birthday thing there, but I'm not sure that they could do reservations.
Yeah, I don't know.
From what I remember.
Well, yeah, and it's like the 9 too. Obviously, the basement has the vault, which is I love
Mhm.
going to the vault, but that's the winter part, and then you go
Mhm.
upstairs in the summer. What are your rooftop favorites?
Well, that would be my favorite now, but we recently covered RH Cleveland in
Oh, yeah.
the Pinecrest area, and that's an amazing experience. Obviously, we we talked a lot about that on here, but outside of that, I know there's another one that's kind of more seasonal called Glamper.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the winter they did a Christmas pop-up Xmas bar
in the flats. Yeah.
Yeah, in the flats, right. And speaking of, the flats is like
All
no
roofs.
shortage
Yeah.
of rooftop bars. You got
Yeah.
Punch Bowl Social there,
Alley Cat,
What-
Margaritaville.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. But Glamper is it's also very trendy too. I would say it would be competing a little bit with Garden of Eden, just in terms of that young sort of like this is very picturesque.
Yeah, I know we
views.
both like the also Studio 117. They got
Yeah.
a good rooftop there in Lakewood, kind of outside of downtown.
Mhm.
But I guess outside, like I've also kind of been thinking, which stay tuned for the story, but kind of patios that in Cleveland that make you feel like you're somewhere else.
Okay, explain.
I think there's a lot of that. Small example, and it's just because I live by it, but Harlow's Pizza, they have like a little backyard oasis that makes it feel like you're almost like in someone's backyard in California with a pizza oven or something. All Saints Public House, which is in kind of the Gordon Square-y neighborhood. They have like a great garden. You go back there. It's very dog friendly. I bring my dog there, and they have fountains, and it's just so like you're in someone's garden.
Aw.
Also, I know Collision Bend in the flats. Their patio is right on the water. The boats come up. People will dock their boat right there, and it's like, oh, am I in the Hamptons right now?
The Hamptons.
Well,
Yeah, that's awesome. I can't think of any that I feel like transport me anywhere that I've been to recently anyway,
Yeah.
off the top of my head.
recently, which I probably mentioned them like 10 times on this podcast now, but Bar Amazonia in Lakewood, they built a really awesome outdoor patio. So it's like connected to Ola, and that feels very like they're always like blasting Spanish music. There's always like good vibes. Like the people there are always having fun. So I would say that as well. And I also love, Gorino's, I think you say it, in Little Italy. It's like the one, I'm pretty sure it's like the only one with like a back patio like that, but don't quote me on that. But yeah, you walk through it. At first you walk in and it feels like it's like some Italian grandmother's house or whatever. But then in the back, it's like all a little garden, great umbrellas and stuff like that. So
I'm sure that's all very picturesque, very Instagrammable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like in the summer, I am not eating inside,
Yeah.
even at my house. Like,
yeah, I would say a lot of restaurants have a patio, even if it's very, very, very basic.
oh yeah.
So, yeah, get outside, enjoy the sun.
Yeah, eat outside. I mean, there's also all the festivals and stuff coming up too.
Mhm.
But even if there's not events, it kind of just feels like sometimes some of these bar patios every day is an event when it's outside. So
Yeah. Well, in Akron, Ohio, there's another really, really cute, picturesque one that's in the heart of downtown called El Patron. It's very, you mentioned live music and stuff. They frequently have a DJ or someone playing music up there in the evenings or something. So that's a really good one if you want to take a little bit of a journey, or if you're in that area too. I think that's a really good one I'd recommend. Margaritas all day.
yeah, and also I know Pulpo in Willoughby, which is the brewery, they just transformed their second floor to be a cocktail bar owned by the same people of Amazonia, but it's a different concept with different drinks. And they have a rooftop there. So it's supposed to be kind of really cool if you want an upscale cocktail rooftop experience, but maybe not as like white tableclothy as RH, but still like really refined cocktails. It sounds like it's next on my list of rooftops to go to. So yeah, so catch us outside this summer. Thanks so much for listening to or watching Dine Drink CLE the podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at DineDrinkCLE and subscribe to our newsletter at cleveland.com/newsletters.